Hello everyone, Voider here. As some of you may know, I'm a huge fan of movement shooters. Splitgate, being a movement shooter, is one of my favorite games as well. Splitgate is a 2019 PvP arena shooter developed by 1047 Game Studio. The game has a huge emphasis on being a blend of Halo's PvP modes and Portal's mechanics. The game is free to play and received decent success upon launch before skyrocketing in popularity in mid-2021, with over 67,000 players online just on Steam alone. And what better time to talk about it than now, since there is an upcoming sequel that absolutely blasts. So today, I'll be doing an in-depth analysis of the portals in Splitgate 1, not talking about the sequel, and explaining how they function and why they allow for so much more than just going from point A to point B, and how they help define the game into what it is. But before diving into any of this, why use portals at all? It may be because implementing a portal mechanic involves designing many different things, like can the player see through it, or will they be allowed to place portals everywhere, or is it just a specific spot, or even is it just a traveling method to hide a loading screen, or can the player use them freely in a designated area? Those are many questions that impact the gameplay and are typically game design questions, as no answer is the best or the correct one, and each one will impact your game in a different way. Now, in the case of Splitgates, those questions have been answered by allowing the players only to place portals on designated areas, blue zones, as I may or may not have mentioned already. But this has a lot of impact on gameplay, because if you could place those portals on any area you want, it would cause the game to become very chaotic and probably not as fun. If you know where the enemies are able to place their portals, you have a vague idea of where you have to be careful. If players could put their portals anywhere they want, well, the problem is, you would not be able to know where they're coming from, ever. And that would just make the game frustrating and unfun for everyone. So what makes portals impact the PvP gameplay so much in Splitgate? It's clear that Splitgate wants its portals to be at the center of the action, being the main mechanic and the one thing that was advertised during the game's marketing campaigns. Portals change everything. And I suppose that checks out. Playing Splitgate while using portals makes the game have such a unique and different dynamic than it would have otherwise. What initially plays like a simple Halo-like arena shooter turns into a game where you have to be aware of your surroundings more than ever before. The game allows for players to place portals on designated areas, blue zones that are across the maps, using the press of two buttons. One for the entry portal and the other for the exit portal. If the player wishes to close a portal, they can do it by pressing another key bound to the same portal, which makes a total of 4 keys in order to interact with the portals. In terms of gameplay implications rather than usage, portals allow for many ways for players to fight, or avoid doing so. For example, if you hear an enemy coming towards you and your health is low, instead of running away and risking for the enemy to catch up to you, you can place down one portal on the surface you can see and another on the surface further away, cross them, and then close them to be out of danger faster. In the opposite scenario, if you see an enemy in the distance that you want to engage but is too far to be hit by your weapons, you can put a portal that leads to a wall near their location to either get to the target sooner or shoot the enemy through it. And even if you did not know there was an enemy here, you might just get to see him first. You can also use them to confuse your opponent if you place portals on nearby surfaces fast enough and cross them repeatedly, but this requires more skill and also risks losing yourself in the process. Now, how does it feel to be on the other side of the portal? Firstly, you can hear the sound of someone placing down the portal in your vicinity, whether they're a friend or a foe. And if your opponent is clever, they will place the exit portal near you last to try to prevent you from being ready for an assault too long. Second, you cannot see through other players' portals, even if they're allies, but you can shoot through them and potentially fight back. You can also cross them like any of your own, and you can also remove your opponent's portals by throwing a grenade onto them. Destroying a portal at the right time will prevent surprises from other enemies, but it's also possible it would disadvantage your team if one of your allies is shooting at an adversary through it. Here are a few snippets of how portals function, so you get to see the way they work. So, as we've seen throughout this video, as the marketing for the game said, portals indeed do change everything. From the way to go on about movement, to the way you engage or disengage your enemies. You can use them to get from point A to point B faster, scout ahead for targets, attack said targets, but you need to make sure your back isn't too open, and you have to be ready to turn around or portal away from here if you hear someone placing a portal near you. If they were not in Splitgate, the game would likely just be another arena shooter trying to replicate the success of Halo's PvP experience, and it would not have found any of the success it got. They are a game changer, very literally, and I'm glad they will be releasing a sequel with big improvements in accessibility and existing game mechanics. I hope the new game will get the attention it deserves as the alpha was great, but I also hope that this game, the previous one, Splitgate 1, does not get forgotten about, as it is a very important game that honestly is very underrated and deserves more praise for what it tried to achieve, even if the execution is not perfect. In the meantime though, I will keep playing Splitgate 1 until the release of the second, and I hope to see you on Battlefield. Cheers.